It seems that one of the worst things to happen in professional boxing is that the sport has taken a more of an exhibitionist approach, one that some would say has contaminated the sport. And even if it has become a dying sport, some of the veterans are fiercely protective of it. Let's take a look at what the latest tea is about. Firstly, what is the recent boxing controversy? While you may expect the Paul brothers to be headlining this controversy too, let us tell you that this isn't the case this time around, as hard as it may be for you to believe. This time, the person who is spearheading the controversy is a person known as Arabella del Busso, who's not new to the line of drama. If you're not aware of what or who we're talking about, it's the ex-girlfriend of NRL star Josh Reynolds, Arabella del Busso, who manipulated her way through a pregnancy that she declared on reality TV. Essentially, she is a Melbourne-based model who broke her way into show business, and the recent controversy that has her name in the news is because she's decided to make her fighting debut in boxing on the Triller undercard, which is headlined by Paul Gallen. And if you don't know about the whole Triller scene, it's a video editing sharing app that is seen as the leech who's copied the TikTok strategy. However, the differentiating factor between Triller and TikTok, Vine, or any other real app is that Triller also works as a promotional boxing league, which hosts cards featuring fights like Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones, to Evander Holyfield versus Vitor Belfort, and even Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. And while these cards haven't generally been outstanding boxing cards, they have been entertaining. More importantly, they've turned into Triller's cash cow. Look at the stats. Tyson Jones reportedly hit around $80 million in revenue. But what's so wrong with this card? Next, what is the controversy about this time? Triller has a habit of making these intensely marketable but questionable matches that tend to draw a lot of attention, some good and some bad. But as good old negative bias goes, negative attention is sometimes more powerful than any kind of attention. And organizers use this to the maximum. So it's not really a surprise when you see a washed-up reality star appearing on a main event as the undercard fight, that too as debut. And the people headlining this event, which in this case are Paul Gallen and Josh Aloiai, which was previously canceled due to the latter contracting COVID, have a few things to say about it, and they're not exactly pretty. Boxer Paul Gallen has openly said that he will not be supporting the undercard debut of the former model because of her treatment of Gallen's good friend Josh Reynolds. This comes after the notorious scandal that highlighted their turbulent relationship, which had a series of accusations against each other. She was accused by Reynolds of faking pregnancies and numerous miscarriages during their tumultuous relationship, as well as claims of domestic abuse. The lady in question is Arabella, issued domestic violence allegations against the football star. Soon enough, though, the charges were released. So much for reality TV romance, huh? Now, what does the bout detail? Del Busso then made an appearance which was subject to much contention on Channel 7 reality show SAS Australia, and has now turned her attention to boxing. So, when we come to assess the bout, the fight itself, it seems to be interesting. The former SAS Australia contestant revealed to the Daily Telegraph she would be going the distance against former runway model Kate McLaren on the undercard. And while it's still uncertain if the fight will still go on to take place with a new date, the Triller spectators are betting on it. Del Busso revealed to the Daily Telegraph that she is super ready for the challenge, especially with what she's had to go through in the last 24 months. But let us not forget that what happens in the ring is vastly different from what people think, and that excitement of roughing up a person is limited just to your imagination. This is going to be quite a bit of a challenge for the Australian ex-model, seeing as Kate McLaren has enough of a professional and competitive tenure to now have her eyes set on winning the boxing world title. McLaren has approached boxing legend Jeff Fenech for this fight's training camp, who confirmed to foxsports.com.au that the fight is basically locked up and that they're fighting out details to finalize it. Although Fenech has previously worked with and trained female boxers prior, this bout's training camp in particular will be a first for him. And while he revealed that he has trained female boxers for their fights, he revealed that this will be the first time he will be cornering someone, especially a female. But he acknowledges that McLaren is an incredibly hard-working athlete, training just as hard as the men at her gym. So, what does Arabella's training routine look like? But as Fenech revealed details about McLaren's training routine, detailing what her regimen looked like, Fenech has also admitted that she is better than she lets on, considering her performance in the brutal reality TV show SAS Australia and how she roughed her opponent pretty badly. He says that he's seen her doing some pad work and acknowledges that she looks strong enough. But he does mention that her game plan looks predictable, saying that it's likely that she opens the round by putting on some heavy pressure, fighting with the intent to finish the fight in the first 2 rounds, but it will be interesting to see how she manages to hold up a chin, and if she can take a couple of punches, because he has mentioned that one of Kate McLaren's strongest points is the volume she throws with her punches. As for Arabella's coach, she is working with the Australia-based Christian Enor, who is getting her ready for the bout, walking through the fundamentals, strengthening them, and trying to make up for her lack of experience in the cage, which includes the nerves getting to her. This fight is something I can achieve in life. It is a very lonely sport, but I am getting stronger and I'm understanding the sport. This would be a great achievement, says the former model. Now, what do the fighters on the card have to say about the situation? As we mentioned before, the main headliner of the event, Paul Gallen, has expressed that he doesn't approve or support of the undercard of the event, especially with Arabella del Busso. Gallen was questioned on WWOS Radio earlier this week about what he thinks about the ex-model's boxing debut and said he doesn't get to decide who fights and who doesn't on his undercard, but made his notions about her crystal clear. Gallen was outspoken about the events taking place and who he knows was on the right side. His buddy Josh and what took place was utterly undignified. I have no control over who's on the undercard, to be honest. I wouldn't not fight because of that reason, but no, I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't support that particular person. Not my cup of tea at all. Here's what happened. She met Reynolds, 32, on Instagram in 2018, if that isn't the most millennial thing. Del Busso had a raunchy one-night stand with him before coming out with claims that she was expecting twins. She later told the rugby league footballer she'd miscarried before claiming another pregnancy in March 2019, only to supposedly miscarry again. The news led to Reynolds being charged and eventually absolved of all charges. However, he had to spend a night in jail with his career on the brink of destruction after Del Busso's claims, under the NRL's no-fault stand-down policy. Next, what is next for the Triller card? What's becoming interesting is how the hype is building up for the next fight and how this whole narrative is polarizing the audiences, building a hero versus villain arc where people are rooting for McLaren, wanting her to beat up the wannabe Barbie, so fans are really hoping that the fight ends up happening. But the No Limit CEO, George Rose, has hinted that the likeliness of the Gallen fight is very less, acknowledging that the fans must be severely disappointed to hear of the news that the Gallen versus Aloiai fight is put to a halt. However, he did make it clear that their primary concern is Josh's health and not the fight, and that everybody at Triller wishes him a speedy recovery and hopes that he makes a comeback pre-season back to training with Manly. He expressed his ambitions to make the Triller card work, even if the Newcastle event had been dampened by this. They still have to show that they can be entertaining and worth the audience's money. We still have some world-class boxers and intriguing matchups, with the boxing debut of NRL hitman Joey Laluya fighting NRL hardman Chris Hyington, Olympic bronze medalist Harry Gersides' professional debut, former world champ Andrew Maloney, and other former and current NRL players including Nathan Rose and Tim Simona. But what's about to happen will only come to be when the event is aired, and until then, we can only hope. But until then, that's all folks. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.